Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Look at that. In James chapter 5, that's where, well, we'll start in chapter 4, pick up around verse 13 of chapter 4. But in James chapter 5, he moves to begin to address society. He's talked to the church up to this point. Remember, we've spent several weeks looking through James. And up to this point, he's been addressing the church in some of the concerns he sees at the first church, the church after Pentecost. So he has some issues, he has some concerns with them. He's been talking to them. But now in chapter 5, he's going to, and really it starts with verse 13 in chapter 4, he's going to begin to address society. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to read from the pastor here of this church, of these churches, of the first church here, the church of Jerusalem here. It's a good thing to see that he sees a need to address society. But when we have a nation that is governed by greed, that is so consumed with consumerism or so taken in by greed, thanksgiving becomes a casualty in the nation. And when society is no longer thankful, discontent is in the heart of the people. Sounds like anything you know? When greed overtakes a nation, when greed overruns a society, discontent and thanksgiving become an afterthought at best, and they are a casualty in the way people operate. That's why our nation is so polarized. Right now, we live in a nation with a lot of thankless people. People who are not thankful for maybe what they have, the possessions, the mindset that we have in our nation today. Our nation today is a greatly divided nation. It's divided. The people in our nation are divided. And most people who have any wisdom or age about them would look back through history and say that they have not seen this type of division in our nation since the time of the Civil War. You know, it didn't start with this current administration either, so you can't blame them. It started in the administration before and the administration before that, and it's been going on. It's been being fed. The system of greed and discontent in this nation, and this nation being unthankful for the divine providence that established this great country that we have. We live in this time, and it's being fed by Satan himself. So if you want to blame somebody, that's who you can blame. Satan is the mastermind, and he's using people as the tool. He's good. He's perfected his trade. But so James addresses society. So that's a good thing to do. Talk about societal issues. So most theologians would agree that in chapter 4, verse 13, James moves to talking about the problems of society, and he's going to look at them. So here James shows that it's wise to point out when a nation turns from God, when a nation turns aside from God and begins to focus its feelings on inward things. When a nation begins to focus on self and feelings of self. So first James is going to talk to them about ignoring God, and then he's going to talk to them about trusting in their own wealth. So that's what James is addressing. And the first thing it is trusting. He comes and he says, you're trusting in an obsessive manner, is what James is saying. So verse 13, chapter 4. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business to make a profit. So the people are thinking that they can sustain themselves. We went over this last week. And they're giving no consideration to God. They have this mindset that we're going to go, we're going to plan out this, we're going to plan out that, we're going to start a business, we're going to do this, that, or the other, we're going to make some income, we're going to have this wealth, and they have given no consideration to God. So the people are going around and they're not seeking God's will. They have an obsessiveness with wealth in their life, with making income in their life, with doing good for their self. And that's what they're consumed with. They too have a consumer mentality. So they're going around and not inquiring of God's will for them or how He would desire for them to conduct their daily life or to conduct themselves or their business. When we're focused on greed, profit, when we're focused on self, we are not content. We are not satisfied when we are always focused on me. And it signals that we are not thankful for God. And we're going to see this. When we are so consumed with our self-wants, it shows, it sends a signal that we are not thankful to what God has blessed us with. Now, some have more than others, true. And we'll look at that. We'll get to all of that. But when was the last time you thanked God for what you do have? We miss that. We forget that. Because we usually bring to God what we don't have and what we want. God, if I just had this. God, if I just had that. And we're absent. The thing that's absent in our prayer or our conversation with God is us being thankful for what we do have. Now, I remember when Amy and I first got married, whatever my wage was, $5 an hour or something. You said, what? It's $5.50. I'm sorry. When I started Penner, I started $5.50 an hour. Might have been $5.25, whatever it was. But anyway, it was low. And I know some of you are out there saying you start out with a nickel, so I hated to even say that. Because you're saying that's what your paycheck was the first every week that you started working. But anyway, I remember, there would be other guys that worked there, and we just worked a ton of overtime is how we made ends meet. But there would be other guys there, and they're making, $5.75 or something. I'm thinking, man, if I can make another quarter an hour, I'd be doing pretty good. That's another like $20 a month or something like that. If I could just make an extra quarter an hour, what could I do with that? I could actually pay the phone bill or something like that, and maybe not worry so much. And I remember that but I remember somebody telling me, and I wrote this down for later. You spend what you make, right? You spend what you make. And they told me, it doesn't matter if you're making $5, $10, $50 an hour. You spend what you make. So it's always still out there. My mother will ask me, well, what do you want for Christmas? Or what do you want for your birthday? And I'll say, what I want, you cannot afford. You cannot pay for. I've got everything that I need, but what I want is always just past what's attainable. Just past what's that they say? You got a wine taste but a beer pocketbook or something like that. You just can't afford it. It's always out there. You just can't reach because you have this desire. But when was the last time you gave thanks to God for what you do have? Verse 16, chapter 4. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance, all such boasting is evil. So James comes and he says, this is a boasting that you have, it's evil. And the word evil is pointing back to, and is saying, to think like this is disastrous. To think like this greed, he's talking to society. So he's saying to think like this, to think selfishly is disastrous. To be consumed by your inner self, to be consumed by your wants, to be consumed by what makes you feel good or what makes you happy, he says that's disastrous. And that's what he's saying. That's his words he uses. So he signifies when you're obsessed with having your way, when you're obsessed when you're upset about not getting what you want, it leads to disaster. The mentality of people was, I'm going to get, and people today is, I'm going to get what should be mine. I want what should be mine. I deserve something, and I'll take it however I want, or I'll take it from whomever I need to. That's the mentality. That's disastrous thinking. That's a greedful mentality. I'm envious of what somebody else has, and I'm going to take it, and if it hurts them, if it injures them, then so be it. I really don't care. That is disastrous in thinking. In 1967, Adolf Merkel, he had a pharmaceutical company. I believe I know it was passed down from his father, maybe even his grandfather, and maybe even past that. But Adolf Merkel, he had this pharmaceutical company, and he had about 80 employees at that time in this company. Well, in less than 30 years, he took that one business, he took it from one company to over 100 companies. And he took it from 80 employees to over 100,000 employees. And Forbes had him at that time listed as one of the richest men in the world during that time. One company was not enough for Adolf Merkel. It was enough for his father. It was enough for his grandfather. It was enough for those that set up the business. One company was plenty, but for Adolf Merkel, one company was not enough. He had to have another company, and another company, and another company, till finally he acquired the largest cement manufacturer in Europe. And he also made a bad investment in VW, Volkswagen, at that time, and it nearly sunk the family business. He was going to have to get, in essence, a bailout from the government to keep the businesses going, and he was going to have to sell off maybe even the pharmaceutical company to back his loan from the government. Well, on January the 5th, 2009, Merkel told his family that he's going to go back to the office. I'm going to go back to the office and do a little work there. So he pulls his car into the parking lot. He parks his car. And instead of going inside to the building there, instead of going inside to his office, he goes, there's a dirt bank that he climbs over this dirt bank, and the 5 o'clock evening train is passing by. As that train passes by, Merkel throws himself off of that bank in front of this train and kills himself. And that's what James is saying. This is disastrous. To have this type of mentality, to have this type of obsession in your life is disastrous. But that you do not have what you want. So it's something that leads to obsessiveness will destroy your life. Now he comes to chapter 5. And it's all being absent from being thankful to God. It's an absence of thankfulness to God for what you do have. Being thankful for what you do have. So now James in chapter 5, he moves from talking about being obsessed to wealth being addictive. Verse 1. Come now, you rich. Now you rich, weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you. Now you think, well, that doesn't apply to me because I'm not rich. So this is not the verse for me, so I get to go to sleep here. I get to check out. I don't have to take any notes or apply this to my life. Do you know how wealthy you are? You say, well, I don't feel very wealthy. It doesn't matter if you make $7, $8, $9, $5.50 an hour, $10 an hour, whatever you make. If you compare yourself to the 90% probably of the rest of the world, you are extremely wealthy. You are the 1% to the rest of the world. The majority of the world doesn't even bring home $10 a week. So this applies. It applies to you. It's for us. Verse 2. Your riches have rotted, and your garments have become moth-eaten. Now this is an attitude that James is talking about. They have this attitude of hoarding. So they're obsessed with it, and then we're going to see that they hoard it. That they're latched on to it, that they're consumed with it, they're addicted to it. They have this attitude of hoarding that they're addicted to, so they hoard it all up. There's nothing wrong with storing. There's nothing wrong with the grain bins being full. There's nothing wrong with saving. There's nothing wrong with savings account and taking care of things like that. But the addictiveness is what he's talking about. There's an addictiveness to this hoarding, to this idea, to this mindset that they have. We have that as we can't give up anything. I can't give up. I can't give, whether it's time or money or my talents, I just can't give that up. I cannot give anything away. I can't be. I think you should be obedient to God and tithe. I think that's something you should do. Now, a lot of people, some people, even pastors will say, "Well, that's not New Testament. That's Old Testament. New Testament, you can just do what you want to. You're not required. Nothing is required of you." I disagree. For me and myself, I feel it's different. James says there's an addictiveness to this hoarding that comes place, and not only is it disastrous, but it will bring a demise to you as well. We think we cannot give up anything. Verse 3, that's why it's become moth-eaten. He says, your riches have rotted, and your garments have become moth-eaten because you've been hoarding. You've been hoarding all of this stuff. Verse 3, your gold and your silver have rusted, and their rust will be a witness against you and will consume your flesh like fire. It is in the last days that you have stored up your treasure. Now there's an old saying as well. It says, get all you can all you get, and then sit on the can. Have you heard that? Get all you can all you get, and then sit on the can. That means you're not going to share. What God has blessed you with, you're unable to share. You're not willing to share because you have this greed or this hoarding mentality. That's what it all comes down. And James is saying it's all going to come down around you in the last days. You may store up all of this. You may hoard all of this. You may gather all of this. But you being selfish in your selfish mentality, it's all going to come down around you. He says, life's a vapor. Life's going to fade away. Life's going to go. There's a certain number of days that you're going to be on this earth, and then you're gone. You're not taking that stuff with you. You don't get to take that to it. Do you really want to take the garbage of this world into eternity with you? Who here says, I want to take the garbage of this world into eternity with me? I got something better waiting for me on the other side. I got something better waiting for me at my Father's house. James says, don't let it be an obsessive addiction to you. Whatever the storing up is, whatever the hoarding is, whatever your reluctancy is to allow God to manage in your life. I mean, you can substitute anything besides finances. Find something else that you're not letting God manage in your life. See, God doesn't give you so you can sit on the can. God doesn't give you so you can hoard or you can consume. Have you ever watched that show, The Hoarders? I don't know what the name it is, but you've seen hoarders. I mean, you see them now. It's pretty common to even go to Walmart and you can walk by a car. A car, the back end of it's popping a wheelie. They can barely keep the front end on the ground. I hope there's no hoarders out here. If you're a hoarder, we need to get you some help. I mean, we can do that. But anyway, you see these cars and they're just packed down with, with Walmart bags, plastic bags. And then they've got every letter every piece of junk mail that's ever come to their house is in that Walmart bag and it's in that car. And they will not throw that stuff away. Do you know what their house looks like? Same way. I've been to a couple. You feel like you need to be, disinfected and fumigated when you walk out because it's bad, but it's a serious condition. I mean, we make light of it, but unfortunately, it's a serious condition that people have. But you've heard of hoarders that their stuff has just fallen in on them, and it's killed them. It's suffocated them. They have hoarded so much that it's been to the top of the ceiling where all you could do was crawl through their house. And at one point it got so high and so tall and so big, I've heard of it, falling over on these people and suffocating them, killing them because of their obsessiveness. Because it's really a mental disorder for them. It's unfortunate. They do need some help, and you've seen them try to kick that habit. But when that's what James is saying. James is saying you gather and you store up, but it's all coming down. James says it's all going to fall down around you in the last days. It's all coming down. And what you have is going to be moth-eaten. It's going to be rusted. Wouldn't you rather say, God, this is yours. Let me give you this. Let you manage this in my life. Let you bless it. let you enrich it, let you grow it. Because you're not going to outgive God. You give God what needs to be given from yourself, of your talents, of your abilities, whatever it is that you're keeping from God. You allow God to manage that, just like your time. And if anybody needs help managing their time, it's me. It's me. I need help managing time. And if I was, more faithful to God, He could multiply my time. He could stretch the time. I do remember at times when I was, in school or writing a paper or something like that, college or seminary, whatever, writing a paper had to be turned in, and I would tell God, I don't have enough time, but I was doing it because He told me I was supposed to do this. So I said, God, I can't do this on my own. I don't have enough time to write this paper. You're going to have to stretch the day out. He did it every time. Every time it always got done. Every time, daily, He always meets the need. God meets your daily needs. Trust Him. That's really what we're talking about today. Our problem is we see what others have. We see how much freedom they have or opportunity they have, and we think, well, look, I live just as good of a life as them. How come I'm not blessed in the same way they are? How come I don't have the same things that they are? It doesn't look fair. God is just, but He's not fair. God is not always equal. He is just, but not all things are fair. Just look at spiritual gifts. Not everybody has the same spiritual gift, do we? We don't. Not everybody has that. I don't understand it, but that's the way it is. Look at Exodus. Look at Exodus chapter 16. We'll be back in James. Keep your finger there. But Exodus chapter 16, God is going to give them manna and quail. Chapter 16, verse 16 says this, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it every man." We're going to see how they hoard. Okay, you know this story. We're going to see how they hoard and what it causes them in their life. "This is what the Lord God commanded. Gather of it every man as much as he should eat. You should take an omer," that's about half a gallon per person. "Take half a gallon apiece according to the number of persons each of you has in his tent." So they're going to do that. The sons of Israel did so, and some gathered much, some gathered little. When they measured it with an omer, he who had gathered much had no excess, and he who had gathered little had no lack. Every man gathered as much as he should eat. Moses said to them, "Let no man leave any of it until morning." So he's giving them a commandment here. He's giving them, this is what you should do. God says, trust Him. Trust Him. Let Him manage. That's what Moses is saying. Moses is saying, let God manage the food in your life. Let God manage the provision in your life. God's providing it for them. It's a provision of God. Let God manage this. But they did not listen to Moses. Imagine that. Imagine that. We don't listen to the Word of God. They didn't listen to Moses. And some left part of it until morning. So what they've hoarded, what they've stored up, some of them are going to leave it to morning because they don't think God's good enough to meet the need. That's what they're saying, right? That's what it sounds like to me. Do we do that? We do, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. God, I got to keep a little bit of this myself because I don't think you're a good enough manager. I don't think you graduated from college with a wealth management degree. God, are you a CPA? God, do you have a diploma on your wall? God, did you graduate first in your class? What were your grades in school, God? Did you take naps in school? Did you pay attention? Did you get sent out in the hall? That's me. That's me. I got sent out in the hall. That's the way we treat God. But they didn't listen to Moses. Some left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and became foul. And Moses was angry with them. They gathered it morning by morning, every man as much as he should eat. But when the sun grew hot, it would melt. So it's a faith and trust thing. This is a faith and trust thing that we struggle with. They tried to hoard, and James is saying, no need to hoard. Trust God. Morning by morning, your daily needs are met. God meets your needs. God is saying, trust Him. Back to James. Verse 4. "Behold, the pay of the laborers who mowed your fields, and which has been withheld by you." So the wages, the pay of the laborers, they've worked for you. You've withheld their pay. Cries out against you. This is an outcry. The outcry of those who did the harvesting has reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. James says you have a desire to make money, you have a desire to withhold, you have a desire of greed, that you're not even paying those who've worked for you, who've served for you, who've done labor for you. It's the idea of an employer withholding wages so that the employer can have more. That's what the picture is. The employer is so greedy, he's going to withhold wages so that he can have just a little more. He's not going to pay them their worth. Maybe the employer doesn't pay them their worth. Or he's not going to pay them because of their race or their sex or their age or something like that. He's discriminating them for one reason or another. So he's withholding. You have lived luxuriously on the earth and led a life of wanton pleasure, just wasting. He says, you're living a life of just wasting. What you have is wasteful living. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. He says, you've consumed and you've taken in. Just like you prepare a cow, you sell it, and they take it off, and they get it fat and ready to cut him up. He says, you've lived this wanton pleasure. Now, we live in a throwaway society today. We do. Everything's a throwaway. It may be foreign to some of you. Maybe you still have some good appliances in your house that are left over from long ago. But if you buy an appliance today, it doesn't matter that it costs $1,000, $1,500. It doesn't matter that the refrigerator costs $3,000 now. It's basically a throwaway device now. Your refrigerator is throwaway. There is very limited stuff they can do to that thing now. And it's chuckable. Your washing machine, throwaway. Used to be that you would buy a washing machine and you could repair it and you could have it fixed. Very little things can be repaired on a new washing machine now. Refrigerator, other appliances, things like that. Let me ask you this. Your TV, it used to be that was an investment. It still is an investment sometimes. But it used to be that, you had a console TV or a big box TV and you would take it to a repair guy. Do you see any repair guy TVs anymore? Not much. Not much. I don't have a clue what they're repairing, what they have in their shop. Because you just throw it in the garbage and you go buy a new one. How about that $1,000 phone you have in your pocket? How many of you have about half a dozen in a drawer at your house? You do. You have old phones at your house. They're just throwaway. Apple is a genius in their designs. I got one person laughing. They've designed that thing to work for just a short time, then you got to throw it away. Wanting pleasure. That's what he's talking about. We live in a throwaway society. I mean, there's some things we can do, we can take care of, and other things we can't. But we have these opportunities, but we don't even think about it. We don't even think about the life that we have, the way that things are. You will just look up. Oh man, sorry. But anyway, the NBA players. There was a thing this week. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he said we got some NBA players. They're just unhappy. They're just unhappy players, and you can see that they're a bunch of unhappy people. They are the most unhappy group of people. Them and NFL players. You don't hear much from the baseball players. It doesn't seem like. But the NBA players this week, they're unhappy. I would be unhappy too. Let's see. They make $30 million a year. They have a private plane. They stay at five-star resorts. They get to take these exotic vacations. How many of you would be unhappy with that? I feel I would be unhappy. How about if an NBA player, wanting pleasure, throwaway society is what I'm saying. How about if an NBA player got an average person's paycheck for 1 week? Do you think they would get their happy pants back on pretty quick? I think they would. I think they'd get real happy real quick. We live in a life of wanting pleasure. We're a people with much, but we give little thanksgiving to God for what we have. Little thanksgiving to God. Here's the answer. Here's the answer for us. 1 Timothy. We're done with James. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. And we're almost finished. Godliness. But godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. Be content with spiritual things. Now you can look at people who are discontent, and you have I wonder if people who are discontent with so much, how their relationship is with God. Now, I get discontent. I get upset, too. I get frustrated. Well, how come my neighbor has more than me, or whatever, something like that. I get a little depressed at looking at sometimes like that. But those who have much, like an NBA player or something, what is their relationship with God? Yeah, they may write it on their shoes or get a tattoo of a cross on their arm or wear a chain with a cross on it, but I'm not really sure that means a hill of beans. What is their relationship with God? A relationship with God, a spiritual relationship, will bring contentment. Don't let the world be where your contentment comes from. Verse 8 and 9. If we have food and covering, with these we shall be content. But those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a snare and many foolish and harmful desires which plunge men into ruin and destruction. Now there's a lot to be said in just really those two verses. We don't have time for that. We really need to spend some time with that. Solomon, the richest guy in the world, was not content. He had everything. There was nobody who had more than Solomon, yet he was still not content. He wanted more, and he knew that all of the money and possessions that he's had was vanity. It wasn't useful anyway. We think if I could just have more, if you could just have more, you know what you would have? More debt. If you had more, you would have more debt. If you make more, you're going to spend more, and you'll never appreciate it. Solomon said, enjoy what you have. Enjoy your meal. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your time the best that you can. Enjoy your health before it flees away. One small thing I enjoy. I try to think about something I enjoy at my house. Just our little household. What is something I enjoy? And one of the things, I didn't want to get too mopey over this, or emotional, but one of the things I enjoy is watching my girls with their mom cook. Amy, they'll go in there, one more so than the other, but she'll be okay. They'll go in there, Amy will teach them how to cook. Biscuits from scratch, some things that aren't, simple items to make, and they'll watch, they'll listen, they'll learn, and that makes me happy. I find a little bit of contentment in that. As I was trying to think about what can I be thankful for. That's one of the things I'm thankful for. The other thing I'm thankful for with the family, and there's some serious to this and there's some lightheartedness to it as well, but I'm thankful for when the girls go shopping with Amy. That's good mama-daughter time. They're spending her money, not mine. So I'm very thankful for that. Now sometimes when they're gone, I pray that they'll get along. But it does make me happy. That's just something small. And that really didn't cost anything. Just to see somebody else making a mark in their life. So there is a lot to be thankful for. All right. I'm going to ask you to stand, bow your head. Father, may we look around at what we can be thankful for. We may not realize it. Food. We're all going to go home. We're all going to eat this afternoon. If we want to eat, we will eat. If we want to snack, we will snack. We can choose not to eat this afternoon. If we want a soda, we'll get it. If we want a $10 grande tall Starbucks coffee will pretty much get it. Father, may there be a thankfulness in our heart, an appreciation in our heart. Maybe it is just the kitchen time or the Saturday afternoon grocery shopping time. But the opportunity that we have to be together, may we be thankful for that. May we appreciate what we do have. May we understand that we have been blessed and that our blessings come from you. Father, I don't want to take the worldly garbage with me. And I know you have something better that's already provided. Father, if there's not one who knows that they have a better that you've taken care of this morning, that they would decide that in their heart and their spirit right now. And as we sing this last song, that they would step out, that they would embrace the gift, and that they would be thankful for your Son's sacrifice. Father, may we lift each other up in prayer. May we pray for one another and be thankful. In your Son's name, amen.